What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Too Much Test podcast, where we talk about performance enhancing stuff, guy stuff, just being more of a man. I'm here with Sam, and we were just talking before we got on here. We'll just jump right in, talking about AOD. What is it, 9064 or something like that?
9604. Yeah, it's
9604. Yeah, and it's like it's similar to like the fragment of human growth hormone that helps with fat loss, but it's different in some way. I'm not super familiar with it, but I've seen people talking about it online. So I don't know. I'm sure you probably know a little bit more about it.
It's a very interesting peptide. And if you take a look at like the amino acid sequence for HGH, it's 191 amino acids put together, right? And that's why HGH is 191, though sometimes HGH is like sold as HGH 191, right? Because it's referencing the sequence related to the amino acids for that. So if you take a look at different portions of that sequence, right, like you'll see that this one is helpful for certain things, right? Well, the tail portion of that sequence, right? So you go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Up to 176 to 191 is responsible for like lipolysis or like fat burning. And so they have fragment HGH or HGH frag 176 to 191, which is helpful for fat loss. Now, when you look at the frag by itself, it's still pretty popular, but the half-life on that is like, there's not much half-life on it. It's several minutes. It's not very long. I can try to look it up or whatever after when you're talking. But then what they did is they took the terminal end of that sequence, whatever that means. It's just one of the sides of that 176 or 191. I don't know. I'm not like a chemist and I don't know the difference. And they changed it with, I think it's called tyrosine, or starts with a T. They switched out one of the amino acids, or they added it to that sequence to increase the stability and the half-life of AOD. AOD stands for anti-obesity drug, and this is helpful for burning fat. It's also gaining more and more popularity. I've used it for I think about a month, maybe a little bit longer. Maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention because I was doing several other things at the same time. I think I did 200 micrograms a day, 5 days a week. I didn't take it on weekends. I would just use it, and then there was like 1 or 2 times where I forgot it. But I did feel like I was getting leaner throughout that period of time. And this conversation is like, oh, maybe I should take that again, because you said you were doing a little bit of looking into that and we're thinking about something with AOD as well, right?
Yeah, I was, because I've seen a couple people pop up and like, they post like before and after on AOD, and it's the one guy that I saw, it was like this first like research thing that he's ever tried. And I'm like, well, fuck, I could obviously.
He said it was the best research thing he's ever tried.
His first like journey into the PED world. But I was looking it up, and there were some studies. They did some studies in like chimps and rats, and they did note some good stuff. I was planning on actually doing a pretty large order with the Triggered brand, just to stock up on some stuff like BPC, MK677, CJC 1295. And so I was just researching it, and I was like, I do have to inject it every day, and that does kind of get old, but I may give it a try just to see what it's all about.
The data, or like and whether that's like from a study or like just the reports, seem to be all pointing at like 12-ish weeks. So if you do decide to like research with it, I would make sure that you do, like, to get the effects of something of that. I think that either doing say 6 weeks and doubling or tripling the dose, or just doing like whatever would be normal and doing it over 12 weeks, right? Because a lot of point to the 12-week mark, where I only did it for like 4 weeks. So this next time I do it, I'm going to do it for 12 weeks and just see what I think of that. Because like, you couldn't tell a drastic difference, but like in the insertions on like my quads, or the insertions on the abs and the stomach, like I could see that those increased a little bit by the end of the month. I should have taken pictures or like done a DEXA scan or something like that. But I felt like I was getting leaner with it. But it was only, I think I was doing 200. A couple times I did 300 micrograms, which I think a relatively common dose for that is like 300 micrograms.
That's what I read. Yeah, that's what I read was 300 was pretty common.
Right. Yeah. So if I do this again, when I do this again, I'll probably do 300 micrograms and do it for, or maybe 400. I don't know. See what it's like. And just do it for a longer period of time and see what I think. I just added in Sermorelin. Have you ever tried that?
No. MK and CJC are the only two I've tried.
A number of years ago, I did Hexarelin multiple times. And I really enjoyed Hexarelin as a injection pre-workout, like 30 minutes before my workout. So I was like, okay, Sermorelin works on a different pathway. That's like telling your body to produce it versus working on as a ghrelin agonist. So I've been taking it about 30 minutes or so before going to the gym. I like it. I really enjoy the peptides for HGH pre-workout. Like, I've done them like this several times. I think what I might actually do is continue with the Sermorelin because like I didn't want to do daily injections, right? Sermorelin you could use as a substitute for CJC because they're both working similarly in the body.
Yeah.
CJC is effectively Sermorelin with like a little bit of a change to it so that it has a longer half-life. So you only can do it once a week. But I feel like the effect you notice with Sermorelin versus like CJC, I feel like I notice it more. Maybe placebo, I don't know, but I'm enjoying it more than like you just take it and then like your HGH is elevated, right? And your IGF is elevated, but like when I do it pre-workout, I just get the sense that I feel it more, or like you feel fuller in the gym. You feel more like, I don't know, your muscle bellies feel fuller in the gym, and you just it's not easy to articulate the differences. Like I want to say, I don't know, you just look better, I feel like, and then you're like, oh well, you're not gonna look better from one injection. I don't know. That's just how I feel while I'm doing it. But I want to combine both different pathways. So maybe I'll try that tomorrow or something.
So combining both pathways, would that be like MK677 plus Sermorelin?
Yeah.
Interesting. I was going to say that the one thing I don't like about CJC 1295 is that I don't feel it. You know what I'm saying? Like with the MK677, when I would research with that at night, I felt tired. I felt, well, I'm not bullshitting, whatever. I took it. I'm in person, but no, I felt it. And with the CJC, I mean, obviously, I know it's working. It's doing its thing. I mean, my joints have been feeling a little better. My skin feels nice. My nails grow like a motherfucker, but I can't feel it, and I think, that's the tough part of it.
Yeah, because I had been doing CJC most of the year. I think I've mentioned that in multiple shows, and just recently I've switched to the Sermorelin, and like, yes, you have to do the injection, but like what I've done instead of putting it off, because if you put it off, that means you're probably not going to do it, right? So what I do like first thing in the morning, because I go to the gym first thing in the morning, is I will get up and I'll do take my shit, and then I will do my injection right after that. And I've been doing like sub Q, like right on the edge of my hip, or like right in the front of my hip, and it's just like boom, done with, and it's quick and it's not bad. Like the ideas that I was telling myself about daily injections were like a lot worse because I was thinking back to when I was doing 3 or 4 injections a day. But I'm enjoying the effect in the gym. I'm enjoying that effect in the gym for sure. And maybe it's just because it's been 7 months of like consistently doing something for HGH, whether it's MK677 and CJC or just one or the other. But like, I don't know, last year there's been like injuries that I've had. Nothing crazy. Like I still trained, but it was like something probably kind of like your shoulder, so to speak, where you get maybe like a little bit of like pain or discomfort with it, whether it was my knee or my back, my low back. And I feel good. Like I feel really good. You know, my workouts are super intense. Like, and at the beginning of the year, there was still a lot more, I felt like, lagging issues where a lot of those have been clearing up, or just kind of like far less noticeable. You know what I mean? You just don't see them or like notice them like you would with certain things. So I'm like, I'm enjoying this. I want to try epimorelin and sermorelin pre-workout, because if I like sermorelin by itself, epimorelin is just basically kind of like an injectable MK677 kind of thing. So if I could combine both of those, if I like sermorelin by itself, then putting those two together as like a pre-workout, that'd be fun. I think I'll really enjoy that.
6 months from now, you're gonna be like combining ipamorelin, sermorelin, and insulin, and then I bring a bag of gummy bears with me to work out, and then I'm going to a buffet after. Because I mean, HGH is an interesting compound. You know, it's not something that you feel, but it's something that every animal has. You know, that they. I was actually reading up on it a while ago that, you know, they first discovered growth hormone, but in like pigs or something, and they thought that it could like transfer to humans because we're very similar to pigs with a lot of different stuff. But I think they realized that every different animal has their own different like growth hormone. There's not like, you know, it's not like testosterone and estrogen. You know, it's like human growth hormone is human growth hormone. You couldn't give it to a pig.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what I read. So human growth hormone's pretty interesting, man. Here's a question. Like, I mean, because I've seen Tony Huge post about like he's had people get lab work on MK677 on like 20 milligrams. And he's, according to him, like the IGF levels are like as if you had like took like 10 IUs of growth hormone. I mean, do you think that MK677 is that powerful?
I think it's like a lot of the things that we'll take where you say one person will take 250 milligrams of testosterone.
True.
Oh my goodness. Because like they're a virgin, right? So like the first time you have sex, it's like, oh wow, that was fucking crazy. I gotta get that shit again, right? But then like, you know, you're like when you've had sex, you know, 20,000 times, you're like, yeah, it's cool. It's still a shitload of fun, but like it's not exactly the same thing as like the first time you had sex. And I think that could be playing a part of it. I've only done like HGH for like a week because like my buddy was moving and he was like, here's, you know, 20 IUs. I'm not going to travel with this. You can just take this or whatever. So I can't say that I like actual HGH better than MK677. However, if I were to pick like a peptide that I really like for HGH and in that category or compound I like for HGH, and in the category was MK677 plus like any peptide I could pick, my first choice would be hexarelin. I think hexarelin has a very strong, it's got a short half-life of like 2 hours or 3 hours or something. It has a very strong effect. And I've researched it like 3 different times for like 10 or 12 weeks at a time because you do desensitize to it. But every time I've done it, I've had a great experience with it. I like pre-workout, really, really enjoy it. You know, it's like awesome. You feel good. You're maybe that's what I'll actually do instead of epimorelin and sermorelin. Hexarelin is sermorelin because the hexarelin is a much shorter. It feels. Think of like the impact of MK677 over a 24-hour period of time. The half-life of MK677 is actually only, I think, 6 hours. Everybody online says it's 24 hours, which is not accurate. It's just like straight up false. But say that impact is, say, over 6 or 8 hours, right? Now, think about that being compressed down to, say, 2 to 3 hours with hexarelin, and you have that, like, big burst of it. It's just a good experience. I would come out of this is when I used to bring the needles into the gym and do the injection in the locker room. you'd come out of, I lived in Massachusetts, so it was cold. So I had like a sweatshirt on, or like a long sleeve with a tank top on underneath it. And I would do the injection in the bathroom. And then I would come out and I would do like 5 minutes of the cardio to like warm up, because Massachusetts is cold. And then I would like, take the sweatshirt off or take off the long sleeve after I got started. And you'd already like have a pump. It was like, damn, this is fucking awesome. You just feel like you're like, muscle belly are full and they're just like bulging, and you didn't even fucking do anything yet. It was I definitely enjoyed it.
That's pretty sick, man. That's pretty sick. I actually so I have a buddy of mine who he's a little bit older than me, probably like early 60s. Well, actually probably I think he's 60, but him and his ex-wife back in the day had done pellets. And it wasn't for like hormone replacement. It was more for like libido and like, she wanted to try it. He did it. I suspect he had low testosterone anyway, but he hasn't been on testosterone in probably 5 years. And I keep telling him, like, bro, you got to get on fucking TRT. You're fucking 55, 60 years old. And he's like, oh yeah, I felt so much better when I was on the pellets. And I'm like, bro, quit being a cheap fuck. I know you have money. I was like, so finally I got him to get on TRT, and he's been on TRT for a month. He started off at 120 milligrams a week, and he's just been on a month. And he just texted me earlier before the show, and he's like, I'm starting to feel like my head's like on a swivel. He's like, I feel like I'm just like more sharp, on point. And he was like, he's never done injectable testosterone. He's like, it's such more of like a gradual buildup of like feeling better than the pellets were. The pellets was just like the surge. And so it's just interesting to see someone who's never done injectable testosterone. He just feels like he's getting better. He's exercising. He says he's able to recover better now. And I was like, bro, it's why I tell everyone that I talk to, everyone I talk to, I'm like, bro, get your testosterone levels checked. It's not a fucking joke. Like, if you're on the fence about TRT, I would recommend fucking doing it. That's just my shit.
I'm sitting here listening to this. It's a super interesting story, right? Because the release of the pellets is, I've heard the same thing. Some places online, you can see the spike at like, hey, the pellets say they'll last like 3 months or something like that. But in reality, like you get the giant spike at the beginning, and then you just get a tapering out of the release over time, even though they say it lasts for 3 months, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about the testosterone, how like helpful it is for people. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm running through the list in my mind of like people that I talk to, like guys that I talk to. And like, I would say the majority of the guys that I talk to are on testosterone. Like,
yeah,
my dad's not, and I keep trying to get him to do testosterone. He's 73 years old or something like that, right? And I can think of like one other person that I talk to that does not have testosterone, but like everybody else that I talk to is on testosterone. Like everybody else that I talk to is like on testosterone, and they feel great on it. I think it would be really cool if there was a way. The biggest issue I see with testosterone is fertility, right?
Yeah.
Because we know how like, Bill Gates is trying to like, control the world and kill off, people, right? But Elon Musk, right, which I have a lot more respect for than Bill Gates, says that there's going to be a population collapse, right? And I think that if you like look at history, one of those two men has like a better track record of like being accurate. And so I think that we're going to have a population decline, right? And if you add in the testosterone piece from TRT, reducing fertility, like that adds to that story. So if there was, and hopefully this will be developed at some point, you had mentioned like a bioregulator, I think before we started potentially, but if there's a way to maintain a very high level of fertility while on TRT, it would be like absolute fucking game changer. Then not just like, oh, why don't you take some HCG? That's not what I'm talking about. And like,
no.
You know what I mean? It's not the same thing. It's not
yeah.
Like that, if there's a way to actually maintain that with like the bioregulators, like actually be able to potentially, or maybe it's a different peptide, or, a combination of two things put together that have that effect to increase, or maintain a very high level of fertility. Because, right, if there's a lot of men that are low testosterone that end up on testosterone, that aids to that same story that like we're going to drop in terms of like the fertility rate even more. What do you think? Like if you were trying to be non-biased, because I think you have the same opinion of Bill Gates as I do, but like if you're trying to be non-biased, do you think that the world is overpopulated, or do you think that the world is underpopulated?
Interesting question. I mean, to be honest, I would say overpopulated, to be honest. Like I'm not part of like the global lizard people elite or anything like that, but I mean, I think of the population, and this sounds bad, but I think of like humans on the planet as kind of like a virus. Viruses get into cells and they replicate and they replicate and they replicate, and they just basically use resources. And that's kind of how any population is. If you stick 1,000 deer out in the woods, they're going to eat all the shit, and need population controlled. Now, don't exacerbate on that. I'm not saying we need like population control. I mean, I just think that eventually, we are going to use up all of the resources, and yes, we will think of new ways to, sustain ourselves. But I think we're just going to eventually, over time, destroy the planet. Like, I'm not like that Greta Thunberg girl. I mean, listen, it is what it is, like, oh, what about the future generations? Well, fuck it. They're going to have to deal with it. We have to deal with shit right now. But I mean, it does kind of seem like a lot of things are in place to kind of, make the population smaller, like, one of the interesting podcasts I listen to, I have no idea what this guy's name is, but he's like a global, like economic theorist. Like he's a smart dude, and he looks at like things from all over different countries. And one of the biggest problems he sees with populations and with like economics for certain countries is when your population is continuing to grow, you always have new customers. You have new consumers to buy real estate, to buy consumer electronics, to buy food, whatever else. I think he was citing like Japan or China. He was saying that China's fucked because they did that one child thing for so long that they have a big population of older people and a small population of young people. And this old population dies off, their economy is going to fucking tank because they don't have enough people to buy stuff. And then I started thinking, well, China is basically selling us poison, and they're selling the precursors for poison and fentanyl. They sell us vape products. They sell up all kinds of nasty shit. What if China's way of screwing over America is to slowly kill off their population? And then you got big pharma giving kids SSRIs, and I don't know. That was just kind of a tinfoil hat moment. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think that so like if you're fly around, right? And say if you fly from here to Texas or to New York or California or anywhere, right? We're both in Florida. And you fly anywhere, right? And as you fly along, if there's not a lot of clouds, right, you can see the earth, right, underneath you from the air. And what do you see most often? You see green, right? And you see like forests, and you see all this like nature, right? And so like there's this idea that there's been too many people on the planet for 60 years now, and that doom and gloom is going to come, and that there's going to be an extinction event, or there's not going to be enough food, or this, that, and the other thing. Like oil is going to fucking run out, right? But in reality, every decade the amount of oil that's been discovered has increased, right? And we're also in the process of switching over to solar and battery, right? Because it's just like you said, like it just makes sense to do so, right? At some point, the resources related to oil, which could be argued is like there's a potential problem with that, because the industry is so powerful that it influences almost every other industry, so to speak, where like I'm on this monitor, this is made out of plastic, which is some type of petroleum byproduct, right? Like I have a magic marker in my hand, the same exact thing here. There's a my car is right outside here, and there's very many. It's an electric car, and yet many of the pieces in the electric car are made from petroleum byproducts. And then
my
you go
flashlight.
What's that?
My flashlight's made of petroleum.
And
my rainbow dildo made of petroleum.
The driveway underneath it, right? Like the asphalt. So I see the traveling, and I see all this green, and I'm like, I don't see there being too many humans. And I've been to like 18 or 19 different countries, and I don't see there being, it's been like the same in every single country. There's massive amount of land for humans. And like, if you don't live under a effing fucking rock, you understand that like humans are resourceful and creative, and they problem solve, right? Especially the ones with high testosterone. And I just don't see there being an overpopulation thing. I think that they've, been purporting that, right? But I just don't see that happen. I just don't see it. What do you think about like that? Because like there's so much land, right? And you're like, oh no, there's not this land, right? Because we're taught to think about scarcity, right? We're taught to think of everything in a scarce mindset, but in reality, like the tree is just going to grow as big as it possibly can, and because it understands that the light is abundant, everything around it is abundant. The same thing happens with the grass or the animals or anything like that. They're just going to grow to be as big and as the best they can possibly be. It's just humans are told to think small. Humans are told to like dream small. Humans are told to not do these things. And so when you like think about it, I'm just like, there's no fucking way the planet's overpopulated. There's so much land, there's so many resources, and there's unlimited abundance in everywhere you look, right? It's just society tells you otherwise. But in reality, the world's a ridiculously abundant place where you can have or do anything that you want to do if you are willing to like dedicate yourself to accomplishing that thing. And so I think that as time goes on, you'll see like a giant drop off in population. We're probably not going to be live at this point, but then there's going to be humans that figure out how to solve that problem to help increase the growth rate. Because here in the United States, the only reason the country is growing is from migration, not because of births. Right? So what does that mean? We're going to die off as a country. If you don't have if you have $5,000 coming in a month or $60,000 coming in a month, and you're spending $62,000 a month or $6,000 and you're spending $6,100, what happens? You get
run out of money.
Yeah, run out of money, and then you go into debt, right? Like, so the same thing's going to happen to the population because we're dying at a faster rate than we're replenishing. So over time, country's going to go away unless you have net migration in, but still the issue is not actually fixed. It's just covered up by like the migration of people coming into the country. But
I was going to say, all that green land that you see when you're flying, that's beautiful land. Unfortunately, Bill Gates owns all of it. And it's really weird that a fucking mega billionaire owns a shit ton of farmland that he doesn't farm on. Like, that's super strange. And I wasn't saying that I'm not saying the earth can't, like, there's not enough room for people and there's not enough resources. I'm just saying, like, you look at a place like India, like, I don't even want to get too much into it because I'm going to be fucking dead before this happens. So I really don't give a fuck. But I just feel like we're going to use up a lot of natural resources, and we're going to have to come up with ways to adjust that. We're going to have to grow shit indoors, hydroponics, obviously renewable. So I think we'll obviously survive as a species, until we blow each other up. But just on random, we spoke, and this was 2 podcasts ago, you talked about jelking, and I actually looked it up, and I actually realized that I do it every single day. And I'll run through because I've heard the term, but I've never seen what it was. So at least according to what I read. I don't know, Sam's definition of maybe different. I think he was just jerking off, but the definition that I saw was that the idea is that you get kind of semi-erect and you basically like pinch your dick in between like your two fingers, and you basically kind of start from the bottom and with light pressure move up to the top, but not onto the head. And the idea is to cause micro tears in your penile tissue that will regrow, and you'll be able to be like thicker and supposedly longer. And I realized, dude, I do that pretty much every time I pee, just to get like all the pee out. So I've been joking my entire life, and I had no idea, because I don't like standing up and then there's pee in my boxers and shit. So I squeeze that shit out.
So testosterone levels also urinates semi-hard too. So.
I forgot about that.
Testosterone levels is going to the bathroom.
I have a piss fetish. I forgot to mention that.
But so are you thinking about doing an experiment that we can share with the people?
No, I'm not. I'm just going to continue doing it while I pee.
But
well, I take Cialis. My dick doesn't really stay semi for too long. It's either up or down for the most part.
It works. Like if you think about like those ladies, right? Or guys probably do it too. They put those rings around their neck, right? And they like grow their neck over time. Or the people with the ear things, or like the deformities of their face, that people like put like weird shit in their face and they deform their face. Same thing. That's all it is. That's literally all it is, except for there's no bones in your cock, right? So
but I also, in doing this research, I saw that they have like, what do they fucking call those? Like traction devices. So it's basically something that you'd put, I guess, on the base of your fucking dick. And then it has something that basically connects to like the head of your penis, and it puts lengthening pressure onto it. So it's the same kind of thought process, but they did it. I don't remember the time frame, but it equaled out to like 800 hours of wearing like a traction device. And the average length increase was like 0.7 inches. So it's like a lot. So they're questioning whether the rubbing your shit would even have any effect at all. But I don't know.
Like, how do you like? So in the data, right? Like they're obviously not going to want to say that you can solve your own problems, right? Because they want to sell you something, right? They don't want to say that you can solve your own problems. They want to sell you something, right? But like if you look at that tribe of like people who puts those rings around their neck, and they literally grow their neck, and then you're like, yeah, I see that is a fact. There are these people who put these fucking rings around their neck, and over a period of time, they grow their neck multiple fucking inches, right? How could somebody possibly deny that it doesn't work for your dick? Right? Like, I just don't, right? And I'm not saying it's you. I'm not saying it's the researchers, because they don't want to tell people that you can actually do this. This is the truth, right? But like, if you see that, or you see those fucking gigantic fucking things that people put in their ears, and they start with small gauge, and they go with the bigger gauge, and they go with the bigger gauge, right? And you see that happens, and you're like, okay, it's exactly the same fucking thing, right? Like, how could this not work? And maybe the time it takes for it to work, right?
Yeah,
is like a long time, right? But like, if you're think about like just inevitable, because I was like jerking off once a day, or sometimes multiple a day, for like at least a decade plus, right?
I'm doing that for like 38 years.
Right? Yeah. You think of that, right? Like every single day, right? You've got like 20,000 jerk off sessions, right?
A lot of jizz.
So think about that. 20,000 jerk off sessions. But now, if you're literally putting a little bit of pressure on pulling your cock through that process, how does 20,000 repetitions of pulling your cock not make your cock longer?
I definitely think it can help with like blood flow. Like you kind of just like work the blood through, give it a little bit of pressure. Like I think it could help. I mean, as long as you're not going fucking crazy on it, like I think it could help.
Right. So 365 days in a year, let's say 20 years. That's 7,300, assuming it's once a day, but there's
Gotta get those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers.
Yeah.
I'll close with a random thing. So my wife, and
that's not random enough.
My wife does not, like, and most women do not understand like why guys like jerk off. You know, they're like, you know, why do you do that? And I tell her like guys and girls think about sex differently. Like, so like in the middle of the day, like, or let's say you're just home, there's no one else home. At the middle of the day, you've got a bunch of shit to do, and that pops into your head. Like, you're not thinking like, oh, I need this passionate experience. You just want to I need to get the fucking poison out. I need to get this out of my head so I'm not thinking about it so I can be productive. But girls don't think like that. So I just thought I would throw that out there.
Yes. And if you guys enjoy these episodes, let us know by leaving us a review, or take a second and share them with your friends who also like to talk about extending the cock length or taking testosterone. I'd really be curious if somebody injected testosterone in their balls, like what that is. Like, I don't want to try it myself, but I'm so curious, like, what that would be like. Does that like heighten the experience of what you're doing, right? Like taking MDMA in a setting, right? I don't know if you guys
you're just gonna have a bunch of oil floating around your balls. That's what I think.
But maybe your balls are bigger, and maybe like, I don't know, like I wonder if that would hurt, like trying that, you know. But we can talk about that in the next episode. So make sure you tune into the next episode. Subscribe if you're watching on any of the Apple or Google podcast platforms. And lastly, if you want a poop towel, or you'll have to figure out why we called it that by listening to the last episode, or some peptides or other research compounds, check out theultimategymtowel.com or thetriggerbrand.store. And we'll see you guys on the next show. Peace.